Listen to any other political commentator on Mark Carney since he announced his candidacy, and they'll all say one thing. He is a horrible politician. And obviously, like, he wasn't a politician 2 months ago. But over the last few weeks, Mark Carney has shown himself to be an excellent politician. In this video, I'm going to talk about how Mark Carney has so far been running an amazing campaign and how his campaign compares to Pierre Poilievre and even Kamala Harris. One thing I don't hear talked about enough when it comes to Mark Carney is just how amazing he is at on his feet, unscripted interviews and like sit-down convos. The 2024 American election was coined the podcast election. Donald Trump, a man who I feel is a bumbling moron, and I feel quite vindicated as such, who had the biggest collection of policy promises that were just some of the stupidest things I've ever heard.
Promises made, promises kept.
But he destroyed Kamala Harris when it came to just being a guy who could sit down and have a chat with anyone, and also heavily boosting these content creators and making them much more likely to support him. And I think Mark Carney has noticed this and just completely stolen it. Back at the start of the year, Mark Carney went from basically a nobody in Canadian politics to the liberal frontrunner, all because of an amazing Jon Stewart appearance that wasn't even just complete softballs. And he still showed himself to be an amazing conversationalist. And staying on that Nardwuar interview, Mark Carney did the hip flip. Justin Trudeau did the hip flip. Stephen Harper had his security kick him out. And Pierre Poilievre stood the guy up. How is Pierre gonna stand up to Trump when he can't even look Nardwuar in the fucking eye? Never mind increasing funding for CBC. We also have to be increasing the funding for Canada's greatest cultural export, the human serviette. I don't, however, think that Mark Carney does as well at like scripted interviews and or appearances and stuff like that. He's definitely gotten better. I'll make a video on my time doing this like later. But a week ago, I actually went to a liberal rally and got to see the Prime Minister, which was just really cool. So he is way better at speaking from his script than he first was, with a better grasp of conversational rhythm and like using tone to choreograph his talking. When speaking to a huge crowd, you kind of have to use these like little subtleties to tell people when they're going to be clapping and whooping and hollering and all that. And then also when to just shut the fuck. In the speech where I went to go see Mark Carney, he had like a couple of moments where the audience like thought it was a good time to clap and it wasn't. But it definitely seems way down from when he first started. I didn't think I would ever say this, but Mark Carney's crowd work is like actually incredible. It can straddle the line of like, haha, funny sex joke, and also like never coming off as creepy, or like two parents would still feel comfortable like taking their kid to a rally.
But I'm supposed to go back the way I came in, but I think I'm going to go back that way.
There's two schools of thought for a politician nowadays: risk minimization and gain maximization. Mark Carney isn't afraid of saying the wrong thing or showing off a part of himself that people just don't like. After the Nardwuar interview, he has clearly showed himself to be a complete nerd. He has clearly chose the campaign style of someone who is 5 points behind, putting in a fair amount of effort to meet Canadians where they're at, even when he's 5 points ahead. It's actually Pierre Poilievre who is running a campaign like he is 5 points ahead, even though he's 5 points behind. Every press conference, he takes 4 questions, no follow-ups, and then leaves. It is actually, I mean, you do have to respect it. This is actually kind of Sigma when you think about it. See how the lone Chad Pierre doesn't care if the soy voter cucks cast their ballot for him. Typical Sigma. I'm gonna never do that again. The thing I hear constantly, day after day after day, is how conservatives keep comparing Carney to Kamala. And yeah, if you were a monkey who only knows pattern recognition, yeah, I could see how those two look very similar. But these two candidates are different in like catastrophic ways. Obviously, number one, there's how reachable Harris is. It feels like Harris put in like very little effort in trying to do podcasts and like build up the left-leaning online ecosystem. As good as conservatives were at doing that, relying completely on like rallies and door knocking. And I can understand why someone might see the Logan Paul, Donald Trump interview, like view count, and think, well, maybe she shouldn't do interviews like that. I mean, it's only 5 million views while the election was still happening. And of course, what if Kamala messed up and said something stupid? What if she sat down with a content creator and later found out they tweeted the N-word? Number one, Aiden Ross is actually a bottom feeder. This man isn't human, and he has said some absolutely vile things. No one cares. No one. And number two, saying big deal 5 million views is like completely short-sighted. That's not how most people interacted with this. From this video alone, there was countless commentators talking about it, memes from it, and clips on TikToks that were spun from this. Most people didn't engage with this video by sitting down and watching the whole thing uninterrupted. That is how most people interacted with this. And trying to count the number of votes that were swayed because of this is impossible, but like it's likely decently high. Kamala maybe did like a couple of podcasts, but like nowhere near enough to be winning on the online front. But arguably the worst thing that Kamala Harris failed to do was number two, distance herself from Joe Biden. Most people didn't like Joe Biden by the time of that election. And at the start, she really seemed like she was the candidate for change. And obviously, we all know the clip that I'm about to show, but I'm only using this as an example. But you know it. She's on The View. Someone asks her whether she would have done anything different from Biden, and she says,
well, if anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Mark Carney, as I talked about previously, is doing way better on the online interview podcast front. Much more than Pierre, actually. But he's also very clearly different from Trudeau and has done a decent job at making that narrative that he will be different believable. Listening to him talk, I genuinely believe that he had major disagreements with the Trudeau team and what they were doing, and I believe him when he says that they didn't really take his advice. Also, I gotta mention real quick, I don't know why conservatives keep doing this, but they keep saying things like voting for Mark Carney is like shitting your diaper and changing your shirt. You know, you guys sound like absolute fucking morons when you say that, right? I disagree on principle with that take. The two candidates, in my opinion, are not the same, but let's pretend that they are. If my parents need an operation done, first my dad and then my mom, and the only two options are a surgeon and a shit eater, and one of them is a surgeon who went to Harvard and Oxford for the exact reason I need him, and the other is just really good at finding and eating shit, and I choose the surgeon for my dad, and oopsie poopsie, something goes wrong and my dad doesn't make it through the surgery, it's absolutely ridiculous to come in and say, this guy's not even gonna consider the shit eater now. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. That's not how thinking works, my guy. Like, what? I don't care that the surgeon made a mistake. I care about not having one tragedy turn into two. Just because the professional doesn't have a perfect record doesn't mean I'm going to go with the shit eater. Stop talking about the past liberal government. What are you going to do? Tell me why you are a better option, please. But also, that shit eater is running a horrible campaign. Pierre Poilievre takes like 4 questions from reporters every press conference. How the hell is he still scaring the hose? Like, I guarantee you already know about the weird biological clock comment. Why he thought that was a good idea, I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. But even his response to him wanting to, you know, use the notwithstanding clause to take away all of our rights is horrible. Pierre can't stop himself from just coming off as incredibly weird in half the campaign stops he does. Good Lord, have you seen the man try to smile? I don't know if his campaign people think he's just like way weirder than he actually is, so they're treating him like that and maybe it's like rubbing off or something. But this man has to work on not coming off like Canadian Ron DeSantis so badly. Even if he does though, I don't think it'll be enough. I don't want to get my hopes up, but even if Pierre wins, I do genuinely think we are starting to see like the cracks in the armor of the new global right. One that is stepping away from the path that Donald Trump paved years ago. I think that this attack dog populism is kind of coming to an end. I can't speak for the rest of Canadians, but good Lord, the slogans need to stop, my guy. I want to say, like, if I hear one more time, I know I definitely will hear it one more time. If I'm going to hear the lost liberal decade, I'm going to hear it a million more times. I'm going to actually crash out. I can't take this anymore. I am going to bet $20 that if Pierre Poilievre loses, he mentions the lost liberal decade in his concession speech. That man is addicted to his slogans. That man will go down with the ship. I'm willing to put so many pesos on that. All these little grievances and annoyances and sourings on these things, I really hope is the sign that this attack dog populism is on its way out. And the West just starts to value strong, stable, competent leadership once again. But what do I know? I'm literally about to be monetized, which means soon I'll have the option to have memberships. Woo! If you've been watching me, number 1, thank you. Please consider subscribing. But 2, if you could take some time to fill the Google form below, I plan on really having memberships and donations be big for this channel because I make political content, and some of those jokes aren't necessarily the most liked on this platform. So if you think I can be useful for the broader center-left political sphere and do actually have a few bucks to spare, please fill out the form below on what you would want to see from memberships and what your favorite options are so that when I launch them, I can make sure they are appealing to my viewers. Making money from YouTube has been a dream of mine, and we recently hit 1,000 subscribers. Yoo-hoo! Thank you for that. I really mean it. Either way, I can't wait to keep making content. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.